Hello and welcome back to Redirecting. Now, as you all know, a lot of young people have been popping up missing. Now, I'm not even talking about the adults. We're talking about young people, whether young boys or young girls. And specifically in this video, I'm going to be talking about black children. There's a young lady, 14 years old, from Chicago, who was found dead in an alley. And I think what's going on is we are not really looking at the bigger picture of what's happening here. I've seen a few people kind of tie things together in which it makes a lot of sense to me. But there's a teenager who was found dead in Gary, Indiana in September. But they are saying that that body has been identified as the same girl who went missing from West Town in Chicago earlier that month. Her name is Takayla Tribbitt, and she was found dead on September 16 in an alley. And so, how did she get from one place to the other? That's one question. They said that through the use of DNA technology, they were able to identify the 14-year-old female victim as Takayla Tribbitt. Lake County Sheriff Oscar Martinez said, and they are pursuing several leads on both sides in Illinois and Indiana. So, this young girl went missing from one state, was found dead in another. This is some very tragic news to hear. We have seen a few updates on other stories where the young people have been found, but there are thousands upon thousands that are still missing. And we're not talking about in the low thousands. We're talking about in the tens of thousands. And it's really, really tripped out to me that mainstream media really only hypes up these stories if they find a body. But the minute people from a certain group go missing, all of a sudden the whole world shuts down in search of that missing person. So what that tells me is that we, as a people, we've got to learn how to stand on our own 2 feet and understand when we have situations that need to be tended to as well. Not only speaking more about these things on social media, but also on the home front. What can we do to prevent these things? Those are the things that I am looking at that we are not doing. I feel like we're more so making excuses only because we feel helpless. Some feel helpless. But I do believe that there are things that we can do to where these situations won't be taking place. Those are the things we are not doing. We're so busy with all this other stuff. And I must admit, in the so-called black community, it's like there is a cloud of chaos and dysfunction. And you can just kind of pick one on any given day, reach into a bag and pick out what's going to trouble your day. That's not for all of us, but I'm speaking in general in the so-called black community. So many issues, so many problems, so many things that need to be dealt with. And a lot of these problems are there because of our lack of unity and love for one another. But can you imagine if this young woman who went missing wasn't by herself at the time that whoever it was who took her took her? Can you imagine if we had a protection policy in place where we wanted to protect each other? Now get this. I want you all to understand when I speak about certain things, I'm not speaking about every last person, because many of us do have these things in place. Many of you who live in the city, you function a certain way in the city to where you're not going to allow this to happen to your children. Those of us who live in the country, we function a certain way. So I'm not saying that every last so-called black person is the same. I'm speaking in general when I'm talking about these issues of how many times we have people who are just going about as if they are in la la land, not realizing that things are happening in this world. Some of our people are literally sleepwalking as if they don't know things are happening until it happens to them. We have so many sleepers that it would take divine intervention and a miracle to wake up our people. We are so busy engulfing ourselves in Western culture to where we don't see that we are the targets of some very diabolical actions from without and within. We don't get it. This young woman, this young girl, however she went missing, someone did it. And we can only speculate as to who it was. This was somebody's daughter. And she was taken and killed. We don't know all of the circumstances surrounding this, because it is also possible in many of these cases, not necessarily this one, but in many of these cases, you have young girls who meet men online. And they run off to be with these men, not realizing that they're running off to their death. We have much work to do in the black community, much work. And one of the biggest things we've got to do is educate our population, not just our young, but even our old now, because a lot of our people have been out of the loop because of this Western culture that we've allowed ourselves to be engulfed in. We've been out of the loop on what to do in certain situations. We're not preparing ourselves for anything. Most of us don't even know how to protect our children, our families, our homes, our land. We don't know. And when you don't know something, you're supposed to seek out the knowledge. The scripture says, seek and ye shall find. But most of us aren't even seeking. We're just going about life as if everything is going to figure itself out and fall into place. And while we're doing that, drifting around in la la land, our children are disappearing. Young girls, young boys disappearing. And even our women are being snatched. Our men are being killed. Do y'all get what's going on? We are in the middle of an attack. But most of us are sleepwalking, having no idea that we're even in trouble to begin with. Like I said, we only talk about it or think about it when it hits close to home or if someone else brings it to us. If we were on guard as a people, we would be trying to figure this stuff out. As a matter of fact, our heads, our men, would be creating task force telling us what our next moves should be to protect our families. Our men will be organizing and being the heads and the leaders that they were called to be, to explain all of this to us and to say to us, first of all, this is why this stuff is happening. And this is the solution to putting a stop to it, putting an end to it. But we have a number of things going on in the so-called black community. See, there's this issue of People not even wanting to hear the truth, not even caring about the truth, much less following the truth. How can you get someone to follow something that they don't believe in or care about? And so this is why those of us who sound the alarm, however we are doing it, whether you're speaking to people individually on a platform or whatever you're doing, this is why we've got to continue to try to reach those who will hear. Because this young woman being taken is just now a name that's dropped into a barrel with many more names who have met the same fate that she has. The only good thing about her case is at least there was a body found. But that in itself is still very sad and troubling. Because in many cases, they do not find the bodies. We hear all this stuff about human trafficking. This is no game out here, family. People being found dead with missing body parts and organs. And you have people walking around like life is a game. This is not a game. What is it that we need to see before we finally take heed to what is right before us? What do we need to see? How much damage needs to be done before we finally shake ourselves out of this sleep? Family, it's time to redirect. Straight up, it is time to redirect and focus on the task at hand. Where do we go from here? With that, family, we will say shalom. Be sure to ring the bell to be notified of new uploads on this channel, and also comment, share, like, and subscribe.